nature nut, I'm not afraid to admit. I'm wild about the wild things and I'm proud of it. I'm just a simple case, open and shut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut. Today we'll go bird watching, tomorrow we'll catch toads. The next day we'll take photographs of bugs along the road. I never get the feeling that I'm in a rut. That's why I'm a nature nut. Well, I'm a nature nut, I'm not afraid to admit. I'm wild about the wild things and I'm proud of it. I'm just a simple case, open and shut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut.
Well, hello there, nature nuts. Today, we are going to explore one of my very favorite topics, the subject of ground beetles. Now, we're not just talking any sort of beetles here. We're specifically thinking about ground beetles, and ground beetles are not just beetles that live on the ground. Ground beetles belong to one particular family of beetles, the ground beetle family Carabidae, or Carabids. Carabid, before it gets away. That's another familiar saying in the world of ground beetle enthusiasts. I've been brushing up on my ground beetle stuff. I've got some ground beetle specimens here to show you everything from beautiful little Omicron. Those ones are called the hemispherical savage beetles, and ooh, are they ever savage. Some lovely iridescent Carabus and Ceroglossus. Everything to all the way to the weirdest of them all, Mormolaceae phyllodes, the guitar beetle. It's flattened and it lives under bark in Asia. I've been reading my Ground Beetles of Canada and Alaska. This is a very rare book, out of print. I had mine bound in 2 volumes in leather. That's how much I like ground beetles. I've got some snail eaters in here. We'll go looking for snail eaters later. Beautiful, weird beetles. Bound in leather, but didn't have the weights put on the bottom. Anyway, ground beetles have been very good for me, so I'm sure they're going to be good for you too. Why don't we go look for some ground beetles?
Most carabids live in the tropics, and many of these live high in rainforest trees.
Well, you know, most of the time when you see ground beetles, you'll either be gardening and digging around in the garden, you uncover them, or you'll see them scurrying across the sidewalk as they move from one bit of vegetation to another. Now, I've been watching this area. It's a good spot, and I hope we can... Oh, there we go. Okay, we got one. Now let's have a look at it.
Well, that's a very nice ground beetle, and this is how you hold them, at least the bigger ones. Get in on the side of the body, helps if you have good fingernails, and that way you won't hurt the ground beetle and it won't hurt you. It won't bite you. The big ones can bite some of them. Anyway, it's a good looking critter. It's got a nice black underside. I want to show you the upper surface though. It's even more beautiful. Just a sec, I'll get it repositioned here. There you go, have a look at that. Isn't that a beautiful beetle? I mean, that's a really good looking beetle. It's a Carabus. It's technically a Carabus granulatus, and it is a beetle from Europe. It's not a native North American beetle. You know, it's like birds, it's like butterflies, it's even like earthworms. The species we are most familiar with, at least around cities and towns, are not the native ones. They're the introduced ones. To find the native species, you really have to go look elsewhere.
Well, you know, one of the best places to look for ground beetles is, of course, on the ground under rocks or boards or pieces of wood. Now, this is a nice little bit of driftwood here. Should be perfect. We'll have a look underneath it. You remember the last time we did this sort of thing, we were looking for scorpions in Arizona, and I didn't dare pick up the stuff with my bare hands. We had a little rake, but I'm here in Alberta right now. There's nothing dangerous here except bears, and there's no way there's a bear under this piece of wood. So, let's have a look. Oh, there we go. Okay, well here's a good one. This is a Clenius. I mean, these ground beetles don't have common names, but isn't that a nice looking ground beetle? A nice bright green color with very tiny orange hairs coming out of the green. I carry a little 10-power magnifying glass with me. It's a great thing to have for looking at beetles, but remember, if you get one of these, don't hold it way out here. Put it right up to your eye, and then bring the beetle in close to you. Clenius sericius. And you know, when it's up close, you can smell it too. These ground beetles, they all have different smells. They're anti-predator smells that are intended to drive you away and make sure you don't eat the beetle. But this one smells, it's kind of like a mixture of kerosene and really bad tasting medicine. Who knows, maybe it's good for me. Anyway, I'm not going to eat the beetle, so it's working as far as the beetle's concerned. Have a look at the underside. It's a beautiful black beetle with light yellow legs, and if you look right on the front leg near the end of the yellow part, just before the toes begin, there are two little spines there, and that's an antenna cleaner. It's like having a built-in comb on your leg. Very handy. I'm going to let her go back under her piece of wood, although I better put the wood back first. That's your basic rule of wood flipping. Always flip her back. There you go, little Clenius.
One Carabid, the caterpillar hunter, climbs trees in search of caterpillars to eat.
Another nifty way to catch ground beetles is called splashing, and I'm all rigged up for splashing here. I've got my canvas bucket. For some reason, ground beetle people, they like to use canvas buckets instead of regular buckets. Adds a sort of a homey touch. And I'm ready with almost ready with my aspirator. It's a way of picking up beetles without, getting mud on your fingers. Anyway, here's the technique. Get yourself a bucket full of water, and then just sort of make a little flood on the riverbank. Flood! Run for your lives, everybody! Wait a few seconds and be ready with your pooter. That's another name for the aspirator. And oh, there's one. You gotta be fast. Okay, well, let's have a look here. These are ground beetles. They're real ground beetles, real carabids, but they're just small ones. In fact, all of these are called Bembidian. There are many, like hundreds of species of Bembidian. I have trouble telling them apart, but I'll tell you, I've been out with my friend David Madison doing this sort of thing, and he can spot all of the species of Bembidian in this part of the world at a glance. He's a Bembidian expert. In fact, I knew we were going to find some Bembidian, so I brought a letter that David wrote to me years ago when we were both teenagers. And he said, in 1975, I'm writing to you now to tell you of my interests, what I am doing, etc. I have been collecting beetles for about 2.5 years, and I work primarily with ground beetles. Even back then, and his favorite beetles were Bembidian. And I now have about 13,000 beetles. Can you imagine? And after all those years, you know what he's doing now? He's a professor of entomology, that's the study of insects, and he studies Bembidian. One man's dream come true. Okay, well now, let's take a break from this serious scientific study of ground beetles and have a little fun. It's time for another great tradition, the Carabid races. Okay, here's the rule of Carabid racing. First of all, draw yourself a circle in the sand and put your center point in the circle. Then, get yourself at least 2 Carabids. One for everybody who's going to race.
I got one for me, and I got one for you. Then, we'll just keep them in the little nook there. Okay, then you have to identify your carabids. That's another rule. Can't be all fun. There's got to be an educational component. So, you have to identify them. Now, there aren't a lot of easily accessible books for identifying your carabids in North America. There are much better ones in Europe, but I can recommend A Field Guide to the Beetles by Richard White, and it's one of the Peterson field guides. Let me just demonstrate how useful it is. We have 2 beetles here for the race today. There we go. One is a Pterosticus. It's a black one. And on the next page, there's a familiar face. Cleanius. So as soon as you've got them identified, all the contestants agree on the identification. Pop the lids off your vials. We're going to put them both in the center of the circle. And the first one out of the circle wins. It's just like sumo. Here we go. Okay. Remember, yours is the green one. Mine's the black one. Cleanius Pterosticus. Go! Oh! Oh! Go, go, go! Go! Hey! Get out of the circle! Oh! The Cleanius wins. I guess I owe you a cup of coffee or a glass of milk. Only one, though. First person to collect gets it. Carabid racing. It's a lot of fun. Educational, too. Give it a try.
The bombardier beetle is a carabid that shoots boiling quinone chemicals out its back end to startle predators.
This is the pink Passamacus palace, and inside is a Passamacus, which is not pink. Now, what is a Passamacus? It's a ground beetle, of course, or it wouldn't be on this show. I'm going to show you my Passamacus. Sometimes it comes out because it's hungry. Might take me a minute to find this Passamacus. It's a real digger. You know, it lives in here in some sand, wet sand. Oh, there we are. I knew you were in there. You're all sandy. I'll give you a rinse. There we go. Doesn't hurt him. It's just like having a little bath. You give your dog a bath, right? This is a Passamacus. Passamacus elongatus from the prairies of Saskatchewan. Look at the jaws on this beetle. That's a very impressive little face. Years ago, a friend of mine dared me to let one of these Passamacus bite me on the end of my finger. I figured, hey, it's a guitar playing finger. It's got a good callus. It won't be able to, pierce the skin, but it hurt like crazy. It hurt like stink. I couldn't get it off. I had to shake my finger, and ooh, boy, it was a bad moment. I'd do it for you again now, but it's a basic rule of pet keeping. Don't let your pets bite you. It's not only bad for you, but it can be bad for your pets too. Many small animals, bugs and lizards, they'll bite so hard they'll break their own jaws. We wouldn't want to hurt your little mandibles, would we, Passamacus? No, not at all. Yeah, boy, fearsome face. Fearsome face. Anyway, I'm going to put this guy down, let you have another closer look at him. Oh, he's a real runner. Let me show you the cage setup here. Basically, it's just sand, clean sand, and I keep at least part of the sand moist because they can use that to drink. They can just drink from moist sand. And then for food, I use dry dog food, like a dog chow or something like that. Just moisten it in water, take a chunk every day or two and put it in the cage. You'll have to replace it every day or two because it does dry out and sometimes it'll go moldy as well. But, like I say, he's been alive for quite a few months in there. It's not a bad setup, and with a setup like this, you can have a closer look at the lives of ground beetles, especially if you want to stay up at night with a little red light bulb and watch them, see what they're doing.
was a happy little boy in a happy little town, laughing with my friends while the world went round. Every once in a while I'd look at the ground, see a beetle running by, dark, shiny, and brown. It was a ground beetle, Carabid, my friend, sharing the world on a different plane. As many styles and as many designs as the birds in the forest and the leaves combine. Well, I went through school and I learned to cope with the big old world and the microscope. By the time I was 10, the Beatles by the drive had been through 10 generations and 10,000 lives. When we were playing in the park, they were hiding in the grass. When we were lying on the beach, they were hunting in the heat. And when we saw the snow fall, they were huddled underneath. And when the moon came out, they were on their feet. Ground beetles, Carabids, my friends, sharing the world on a different plane. As many styles and as many designs as the birds in the forest and the leaves combine. Ground beetles on the ground, ground beetles in the trees. They have no sense of history. What can you know about the winter or the fall when you only live in summer and the summer is old? Ground beetles, Carabids, my friend, sharing the world on a different plane. As many styles and as many designs as the birds in the forest and the leaves combine. As many styles, as many designs as the birds in the forest and the leaves combine.
Now, if you want to know what kinds of ground beetles are living in your neighborhood, one of the best ways to find out is to set up a pitfall trap. The center part here, that's a rain shield, and then these 4 boards coming out from the center, those are little fences. And the idea is that a beetle walking along the forest floor will bump into the fence and then sort of be drawn into the center of the trap. In the center, we have a plastic tub sunk into the ground with the top of the tub flush with the ground surface. Basically, the beetles just walk along and they fall in. Let's have a look. Let's take off the top piece and look inside. All right. Oh, beetles galore. We've done quite well. And most interestingly, there's a snail eater in there. That's what I wanted to catch. So just give me a second and I'll get that snail eater out of there. Have a close look at this beetle. You see its wonderfully long, pointed head and the long jaws out the front. They need this sort of a head because they eat snails and slugs, and they have a nice long head for getting deep, deep, deep into the snail shell and scooping out that last little morsel of escargot. Very interesting. They're beautifully shaped, and they're quite fast on their feet, too. You know, they have long legs. And I don't know, I just love these. They're one of my favorite ground beetles. Every time I see them, I think about my friend and mentor, Dr. George Ball. He's a Carabid beetle specialist. He's devoted his entire life to the study of these beetles, and he has 2 giant snail-eating Scaphanotus cast in metal above his garage door. To him and to me, these are things of immense natural beauty.
Some carabids eat seeds instead of bugs, but most of them are helpful little predators.
Now I'm looking for a very interesting ground beetle that doesn't live on the ground at all. And I can't find it. I found them here in this same dogwood bush on this same day last year. Usually nature is very predictable that way. I even took some pictures of them, but they don't seem to be here today. Anyway, let me tell you about them. They're very interesting. The young ones, the larvae, they are parasites, and they are parasites on the pupae, I should say, of leaf beetles. And the adults will feed either on the leaf beetles or the leaf beetle larvae or the leaf beetle pupae or whatever else they can catch. And not only that, the adults mimic the leaf beetles. They're the same color. They're a dark, steely, metallic blue. I wish I could find one. They're called Libya. They're so interesting they named a whole country after them. Libya. I think that's right. Sorry I can't find one. I'll keep looking.
The most colorful carabids come out only at night, and no one knows why they are so beautiful.
Well, I guess that's all the time we have for ground beetles. But before we go, I want to make a distinction between beetles and beetles. Beetles, those are small insects with hardened wing covers. Beatles, those are musicians. And if you're still confused, real beetles, they don't look or sound anything like this. It's a good thing I'm a nature nut, and I hope you are too. Bye for now.
Same time each and every week, uncensored and uncut.
No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut.